Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to part 2 of Morning Break. We hope you've enjoyed the show so far. Stay tuned because we still have lots to come.
Now it's time to introduce our guest for today. We have with us brother Ibrahim, who's from ontheD, a spoken word group of artists. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Thanks for having me.
So tell us more about ontheD. It's a very cool name. It sounds very cool.
ontheD, they're a group of brothers. There's 2 from the US. I think one of them is from Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And there's 2 brothers from London. They're a group of people who record spoken word poetry. And why they do it is because they're trying to portray the message and they're trying to get through to the youth of today, because it's now becoming, if I can say, more harder and harder to stay on the D. on the deen. It's harder to stay on the deen. And there's becoming more distractions, and it's becoming more essential as well, more important because of the things that are going on all over the world. And they're just trying to relate to a lot of the youth, to be honest. And it's their way of getting through to the youth.
Mm-hmm. Just for anyone who doesn't know what spoken word is, could you explain what spoken word actually is and how that's different to normal forms of rap or poetry?
To be honest, I think spoken word is more from the writer to the reader, or the speaker to the listener. It could be described as a conversation, except the other person is listening. Poetry is more of kind of the person speaking his own mind, and sometimes it relates to some people and sometimes it doesn't relate to others. Even spoken word is like that as well. But I think spoken word is just much more, I should say, intimate. Okay. If I could say intimate, it's more intimate, it's more one-on-one, and it gets more through to the mind. Rap, to be honest, I don't really like the word rap because of what it's associated with nowadays. So I think spoken word, it is poetry, but it's just another form, a different way of getting through.
So this concept of the spoken word, is this something that's fairly new, or is this something that's been around with the younger generation for a while now?
I think it's developing. It is new, I would say, in this generation. I think it's starting to develop because same way there's a need for it, and I think youth nowadays, they can easily be distracted by different forms of rap or music or poetry, and they're easily getting distracted by that. So it's like a diversion route for them instead of a straight lecture, which a lot of youths might find boring nowadays. It's more like a diversion. I think it's definitely developing, and it is a new concept.
I know my little sister was quite keen on spoken word, and when we first heard about it a few years ago, we were all sort of laughing at her, saying, you know, is it one of those things where you're sort of rapping and what you think you're a bit of a gangster? So we made it into a bit of a joke, but that's because we didn't know what it was all about. And actually, when you hear someone recite spoken word, and especially what I think when they're talking about something that's on a religious note, it's really powerful, isn't it? And it's quite passionate, and like you said, it's like a one-to-one. And so I think that's really, it is that, like you said, it's a good diversion for young people to relate to, especially when they perhaps might be listening to other forms of rap, like, you know, from mainstream artists from America, for example. It gives them a chance to switch to someone who's doing the same thing but on about a better topic. So yeah, I mean, how did you get involved with ontheD in the first place then? And had you heard about their first CD that was released called Karbala, the Unspoken Word?
Yeah, the story behind that is actually quite funny. It was Muharram last year, and I just came out of mosque, and I was with my cousin. We jumped in the car because he was giving me a lift home, and he pulled out the CD and he said, "Oh, there's something I want you to listen to. I think you'll like it as well." And he played it, and I was thinking, "Wow, this is really good." And it's funny how I was listening to complete strangers, and the next year I was on the next CD. So it was quite funny for me because I was sitting and I liked it a lot, and I took some of the tracks as well, I put them on my phone, and then they did a competition for the next CD called The 12th Prince, about the arrival of Imam Mahdi. And yeah, they did a competition, they Facebooked it, and my cousin told me, the same cousin who told me, those brothers, they're doing a competition this time, and if you put forward a track, they might put you into the next CD. So alhamdulillah, I put it in and they liked it. So, and then yeah, it's like that. Just like last year, they were complete strangers and I was listening to them in the car, but now I'm part of their group and we're brothers, so alhamdulillah.
That's really good. What was it in particular that you liked about that CD? I know that it was really popular amongst young Muslims across the UK.
I liked about it because it's something that I never heard before, or I wasn't used to when in accordance to the Kalbra story, because a lot of people are used to Letmiyat or English nasheeds or Noha. But when I heard that, it was something new to me, and I did like it a lot because it did get through to me.
MashaAllah, that's really excellent. So before you won the competition and before you entered the competition, did you used to write before that as well, or was that something that you did, it was the CD that inspired you to write?
The brothers did inspire me, but I was writing before that as well. I was writing at a bit of I was writing at a faster pace before that. I was writing kind of like every day. It was a thing where, like, I felt like, at my age, I kind of felt like I was one of the few people who had their heads screwed on straight, because everyone around me was getting caught and dragged in to different things. And it's like, it's like standing in the center of a tornado and everyone around you is just getting sucked in and dragged in. And seeing that, it does hurt as well when you're seeing people that you were close to or people that you grew up with going into certain things. It does hurt you. So I started listening to spoken word poetry about things like that. And then I did like it as well, so I thought, let me try to do that as well. And yeah.
Was it quite, when you thought, okay, I'm going to enter this competition, did you think, what am I supposed to, I know that they asked for the theme of the 12th Imam, didn't they?
Yeah.
But did you think, okay, where do I start? And this is weird, you know, me recording my own personal piece and sending it for people to judge almost. Was that quite hard?
Yeah, it was hard. I was nervous as well, because I was sending it to complete strangers, and sometimes you can hear from like your brothers or your family friends or your relatives, whatever, they would push you or they would motivate you and say it's good, but you might never know if it's actually good or they're just saying it because they're your friends or family. But then when I sent it off, and I was thinking, would they actually like it, or yeah.
When you received the feedback, how did it make you feel? How did you hear that you'd won the competition?
That's also a funny story as well. I was on Messenger talking to the brother from ontheD, and this was about 2 days after they were supposed to make the decision, and I never heard from them. So I was talking to him and I said, oh, I haven't heard from the competition for a while. What happened? And he said, oh, didn't Muhsin tell you? I was like, nah, he didn't tell me. He was like, I think it's only right that I tell you that another brother won. And and he was going on for like 20 minutes with it as well. And I was like, oh, congratulations to the brother. He was like, oh, I feel bad for telling you. Oh, I wanted you to win for a good 20 minutes. And then in the end, he said, oh yeah, listen, I was only joking. You won it. And my heart just felt, yeah, for 20 minutes as well.
MashaAllah.
And so then, once you'd won the competition, then I'm assuming you had to go into the studio and start actually recording stuff, right? How did it work after that?
Yeah, I had to go in the studio and record it properly, because the way I recorded it the first time was bad quality and
DIY job.
Yeah, DIY job. So yeah, they got in touch with me. They gave me a date and time to sort it out, and I went to the studio that they use, and then I recorded it there. The same poem.
I really liked that metaphor that you used earlier about feeling like you're standing in the middle of a tornado and how everything's collapsing around you. And I think, you know, you're young, you're still a student, and so there's it's a very vulnerable age. So mashallah, it's amazing that you feel that you had your head screwed on and that you're involved in something that's quite a big project actually. But how do you find balancing life at school, life at home, in terms of recording in the studio, etc.? And do you find that there's any points where those two things link up?
It is hard to balance it, and recently I haven't been writing anything for a long time now, because the work does get in the way of it, or by the time you come out of school you might be exhausted, or your mind might be very tired, so it's hard to write then. But they do come together. For me, it came together because I was quite lucky. Recently, from my English literature A-level, we were reviewing a book, A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khalid Hosseini. And as a writer, he did inspire me a lot to write my own book. And I like the way he portrayed different things and the way he brings you into the mind of different people. I liked it a lot. and he did inspire me a lot. So inshallah, one day I might hopefully write a book as well.
Inshallah. That's great. Actually, we're after the break, Omera will be reviewing A Thousand Splendid Suns.
I will be indeed. How did you find inspiration in that book? Just out of interest, what made you like it so much?
It's just the way that he writes and the way he uses everything to his advantage. The way he uses the nature, people's mentalities. He uses everything to his advantage, and he really puts you in the middle of the story of the two girls that are involved. And it does inspire you because we're here in London, but he literally puts us into Kabul, Afghanistan, and we explore the city, the mentalities of the people, what people go through within their own homes, without outside their homes. So it did inspire me a lot.
I was just going to ask you actually whether any of your A-level subjects are creative in terms of linking in with the work that you do with the spoken word poetry. And just in the break we were discussing English literature, weren't we? Because we both did English literature A-level and we both love English literature as well. So, do you ever get to write, for any of your subjects at school or any of your school projects? Have you ever written poetry for school?
For school, not really. But I have performed a poem at school. It was at the final assembly of year 11. So I did perform a poem there. It was about a man who he's too wound up in his work and his money and his Western kind of life, and he falls into a dream. He goes to sleep and he falls into a dream where he finds himself in a torn down place, poverty stricken. And a young boy comes to him and he has a conversation with this young boy and realizes how everything that he was worrying about, all his loans and his debts, were nothing compared to what this young boy has to put up with. And then he woke up and then his life changed.
Is that something you wrote yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. And now that you're involved with ontheD, do you find yourself focusing more on, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and Karbala and things like that? Or do you also still, when you are inspired, write about other things in your life?
I bring them both together. Sometimes I bring them both together and sometimes I do one or the other. But they are two things that really do come together because the Ahlul Bayt, they show you how to live your life and how to go through certain things and what you should do in certain situations. So they do really link together.
Talking about situations that we're all in right now, in the YouTube trailer for The 12th Prince, I was watching it the other day, and the voiceover on the actual clip ends with, "We are at war with terrorism, with racism, but most of all we are at war with ourselves." And I really like that, and I wonder if you could perhaps tell us a little bit more about the thinking behind that, especially considering the title as The 12th Prince.
Yeah, I think that nowadays it's not really a problem, but it could be a distraction. All of the things that are on the news, like the things that happen in Palestine, things that happen all over the world, it's not a distraction. It's something that we should be concerned with. But what happens is with a lot of young people especially, they get caught into like an illusion where they have to go and sort that out and they have to go and fight against the machines, when really and truly they have to defeat themselves and first have to defeat their desires.
Wow, mashallah, that's very powerful coming from a youth. It's very inspirational actually, so thank you for that. We're coming towards the end now, but I wanted to ask you whether you came across any resistance from the community, because I know sometimes we are very cautious, shall I say, about something that's new or something that's a bit different, or something even that is in any way, shape or form resembles things that come out of the West, which are haram and we're not allowed to do so. What did the community say, and how did they react to this?
Yeah, I think it was a very risky topic to go into, and there was a lot of things that you have to make sure don't go over the limits, over the boundaries. So what we did do is we stayed away from hip-hop beats or drum beats. But it does depend on your marja. For example, me, I follow Ayatollah Sistani, and he says that if it could be played as a form of amusement or entertainment, or you can bop your head to it, then it's haram for the person listening to it. And also, if that's the general view of it, then it's haram for the person who wrote it as well. So it could be different from person to person. If the person listens to it and he's listening to the beat more than the message, it could be automatically haram for him. But I think that for me, if if it's getting through to someone, if the message is getting in their head and it's helping them, and also it's helping me as well. Me, if I'm writing it, it's helping me because it reminds me what I should be doing, and also it's reminding the listener. So if it does have that effect, then I don't find any problem with it, but there is a lot of resistance, yeah.
You raised some very good points there. Tell us a little bit about your, I'd be interested to know a little bit more about your school life in terms of your interactions with your friends and maybe non-Muslims as well, or Muslims from other schools of thought. Do they know that you, for example, have recorded albums, and do they know at all about your work, or do they find it strange that there are certain things that they can do and you can't do? And how do you deal with that? I'd just be interested to know, and maybe somebody watching could take inspiration from that.
I think that if those people don't know about it, then your work is not really doing what it should be doing. But as well as helping the people that are already doing it, it should be informing the people who don't know as well. So definitely, like we did a lot of things, like even with people that are from the Christian religion, people from other religions, we made a group on Facebook, and we had all these things together. We put all our poems together, and a lot of other people did get to see them as well. So I communicated with these people, and we found like a common ground, and on these we related to each other on these common grounds. So in that way, they really did begin to understand me a lot. And there's even a brother, one of my friends, who was Hindu, and he became Muslim as well.
Oh my God! Wow, mashallah.
So I think that shows the power of spoken word, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it was fully because of the spoken word, because we did used to conversate a lot. But I think that did have an effect as well. But maybe not just mine, other as well.
Yeah. I think knowing about your faith and talking about faith in general, like you said, it leads to what they call interfaith, right? Where we all discuss common ground, like you said, and sharing that same values that we have. And even if someone doesn't necessarily become Muslim, it's really nice that you've done your duty, haven't you? You've told them about what you believe in. And that's why I really like the fact that your album is actually called The 12th Prince, because it's going to make people question, well, what's all this about and who's the 12th Prince? And it's our duty, isn't it, to prepare people for his arrival. It's nearly time to wrap up, but would you mind reciting or reading something out for us?
No, I wouldn't mind. Okay, this one is it's more to do with this poem that I'm about to recite now. It's more to do with life, rather than specific Ahlul Bayt. But okay. Candlelights flicker in the wind as they struggle to survive. Drops held captive and hearts attempt to run from the eyes. Leaves leave their trees and seem to run for their lives. Blind, they fall into waves of rivers and drift with the time. They scream for a savior throughout the silent nights, in a city full of voices that live short lives and perish in the air before they float to the sky, where the souls drown empty as they fill with sorrow, and the past returns in the perseverance of tomorrow, where dreams of insomniac though most die, and ladders of paper are what the giants climb, so they fall in the attempt to rise. Who knew the light burned till the flies couldn't fly, till the vampires covered their sight, bloodthirsty in the dark of the moon's light. In this life of death they would kill for a life. The ladder aims high, but who knew of its reach? And maybe at the top pigs really do glide, but nobody makes it to witness, because myths of this life exist when we die, and Allah was forgotten from the minds, lost from the hearts, but He always finds a perfect time to remind, wake up, it's time.
MashaAllah, thank you very much. I wish I could remember that much off by heart.
I know, and it's really inspirational to have someone, it makes me sound old, I know, but someone so young and to come up with such deep messages. I'm really impressed with that, mashallah, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've really enjoyed listening, hearing from you and hearing the amazing things that you're involved in, and mashallah, at such a young age, to be so grounded and to be so well-directioned, I think is very rare, and I hope that the youth that are watching, inshallah, will take inspiration from you. But just for anyone that wants to know more about how to get into this, what kind of advice would you give them on how to start with spoken word and things?
I think that you should, if you're writing already, you should never stop or never think to yourself, because there's a lot of people that think to themselves that they're not good enough. I think even if you're thinking that and you're really sure about it, I think it helps to just, if you just go outside and just clear your mind, you can look around and see, you can find inspiration everywhere. MashaAllah, you can find inspiration everywhere. And the internet is very good nowadays, MashaAllah. So you can look up a lot of competitions, or just blogs where people put their poetry together, and you can enter into those kind of things or post your poems up there, and you get a lot of feedback, inshallah.
Thank you. For anyone who would like to purchase the CD, The 12th Prince, or find out more, or even watch the trailer that I mentioned earlier, you can visit www.ontheD.com.
Thank you, Brother Ibrahim, for coming in, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thanks for having me.
Right, now it's time for a short break. You have time to make a quick cup of coffee, but don't forget to tune in for the final segment of the show. See you shortly.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Thanks for having me.
So tell us more about ontheD. It's a very cool name. It sounds very cool.
ontheD, they're a group of brothers. There's two from the US. I think one of them is from Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And there's two brothers from London. They're a group of people who record spoken word poetry. And why they do it is because they're trying to portray the message, and they're trying to get through to the youth of today, because it's now becoming, if I can say, more harder and harder to stay on the D, on the deen. It's harder to stay on the deen, and there's becoming more distractions, and it's becoming more essential as well, more important, because of the things that are going on all over the world, and they're just trying to relate to a lot, except the other person is listening. Poetry is more of kind of the person speaking his own mind, and sometimes it relates to some people and sometimes it doesn't relate to others. Even spoken word is like that as well. But I think spoken word is just much more, I should say, intimate. Okay. If I could say intimate, it's more intimate. It's more for the youth, to be honest. And just it's their way of getting free to the youth.
Mm-hmm. Just for anyone who doesn't know what spoken word is, could you explain what spoken word actually is and how that's different to normal forms of rap or poetry?
To be honest, I think spoken word is more from the writer to the reader, or the speaker to the listener. It could be described as a conversation.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to part 2 of Morning Break. We hope you've enjoyed the show so far. Stay tuned because we still have lots to come.
Now it's time to introduce our guest for today. We have with us Brother Ibrahim, who's from ontheD, a spoken word group of artists.